It is amazing how productive you can be on the knitting front when you have a couple of weeks where there's no travel and meetings and other things going on. We have got a lot of finished objects to show. I will show them all and we'll talk about what's next when I see you on the other side. Welcome and hello. Welcome to the dog days of summer. Welcome to me knocking over the camera, maybe, to this episode of Gary Knits, Gary Rides, a Craftivism podcast at the intersection of making things and doing good. My name is Gary. I am a knitter and a crocheter, a sometimes designer, and every so often I come to this corner of YouTube to show you what I've been working on and to give you some ideas on how you can take your love of crafting all the things and do a little bit of good in the world. As I mentioned, Dog Days of Summer, we are in our annual heat wave here in coastal Southern California, where it never gets too hot, but it always gets hot enough for me. It's been up in the 90s this week, but otherwise a pretty nice time of year. I'm already off to a great start. You can find me on social media over on Blue Sky as Gary Knits and on Ravelry as Gary Knits and Rides. Before I forget it, here is a QR code that is going to take you to all of the show notes, which are also down below. But if you're not watching this on your mobile device, you can just take a picture of that QR code and it will bring up the Google Doc where I list every pattern and yarn dyer and craftivism idea, whatever else we talk about on this episode there for you to have easy access to it. As I said, it has been a relatively quiet couple of weeks in terms of me not having to be traveling or having a lot of extraneous things going on, which has been fantastic. Although I love traveling and I love having house guests, it's nice to have a break every now and then, which has allowed me to get a fair amount of knitting in, as well as do some much needed chores around the house. Some things that had gotten neglected for many months are finally getting taken care of. But we've also had some fun things going on. So the last couple of weeks, I got to go to a LA Philharmonic rehearsal at the Hollywood Bowl. So saw two Rachmaninoff piano concertos and had to skip out before they were doing one of the symphonies as well, but I can't remember what it was. But I had to get back. I had to get back home for something that day. So that was nice. I am not a huge Rachmaninoff fan. My husband and I joke about it all the time because he is, and I am generally not. But what I kind of realized was it's specifically one of the piano concertos that I really dislike. I think it's the second, and it's the one. If you know it, it has a little snippet of it that was transliterated into the I can't remember who sang it originally, but Celine Dion had a big hit with it, and it's All By Myself. Sorry for the singing, but that song, and I can't not hear that whenever I hear that piano concerto, and it just takes me out of it, and I dislike it. Anyway, we also had, I think maybe it was the kickoff for this season, or maybe it's the tail end of last season at the theater group downtown. We saw the traveling production of And Juliet, which was a lot of fun. I had very low expectations going in. I knew it was a jukebox musical, not usually my thing, but this was fun. It was very light, very silly. It was all done with music from the 90s. I think they were all Max Martin songs, of the Swedish songwriter, hit maker, who did a lot of songs for Britney Spears and NSYNC and stuff like that. So those were the songs in the story, and it was kind of Obviously, the name and Juliet, it's a riff on Romeo and Juliet, where what would have happened if Juliet had not killed herself, and had gone on from there. And it involves Shakespeare and his wife kind of fighting over the direction the story would have taken, and it was silly and fun, and we enjoyed that. And then we just this last weekend, we had swapped one of our Hollywood Bowl tickets to go see they do this every summer. They call it Maestro of the Movies, and it celebrates the music of John Williams, who is affiliated with the LA Phil, and they do an evening of his music and also have usually some accompanying film clips. We've been several times. It's been a couple of years since we went to the show, but they do it every year, as I said. And every year you get the Indiana Jones march and the Superman march and Darth Vader's march from Star Wars and the main title theme from Star Wars. So you get the hits, but mixed in there they do a lot of other John Williams music and mix it up. So it's a nice event, and you hear some music, some movies I've never seen, like Memoirs of a Geisha, Far and Away. Some things from that was really a fun evening. So even though it's been relatively quiet, we're still pretty busy. Things are going on, but I want to get right into it because I have a lot to talk about today. I want to talk about not only the FOs I've finished, because the two big ones, if you've been watching for the last few episodes, or probably for the last several months, you'll know the projects I'm talking about. I was able to get those done 3 weeks ahead of the deadline. Fantastic. Which has kind of opened up planning for me for what I want to do for the fall, which then spurred me to go back and look at the beginning of the year and the kind of queue I'd put together. Not really my Make 9, but like it was probably more like a Make 12, of things that I wanted to try to get done this year, as well as some intentions that I had. So we're going to revisit all of that and kind of give myself a score. But before we do that, wanted to bring some Craftivism ideas to you. So first is an update from, I guess it is last episode. So while I was in Seattle, went to Acorn Street Shop, lovely local yarn store there in Seattle, and there was a little sign at the checkout for an organization called Feel Good Hats that collect hats in the Seattle area, but also I expected you could send them to them if you were not a local. And I reached out to the name that was listed on the flyer, and I heard back from one of the other organizers of the group, and so I just wanted to pass on some more details. It'll all be linked down below. So if you're local in Seattle, or if you're just a prolific hat knitter and you'd like to get involved in this this effort, it's a bit different than some of the other ones that I mentioned. I mean, there's a lot of hat drives out there, but this one's a little bit different. So I got an email from Kay, and she said they collect hats every year, and there's a board of directors for this organization. It is a 501c3. And because my question was to her, any fiber restrictions, any size restrictions, depending on where these things are going. But they don't distribute the hats to organizations. What they do, and I assume this is at like local bazaars and flea markets and crafting event markets, they sell the hats that they get donated to them, and then the board of directors decides on where that money is going to go. So last year they raised $11,000 through the sale of hats that their volunteers make and have gotten donated, and they donated it to a local food bank, a local refugee organization, and I think an international microfinance organization. She said each year the charities change, and it's up to the board of directors on who they're going to go to. But unlike other hat drives where you're donating and they distribute them to homeless organizations or women's shelters or something like that, here they're going to sell them and then donate the money directly. So because of that, they will take any size. So she said they get a lot of adult hats, but they always like to have a mix of kids and infants hats as well. Any fiber, and she said we'll take any sort of technique. She said we get some very simple hats as well as some expert color work and things like that. So I think it's a great opportunity if you like making hats and you would like to try some new patterns or new techniques, but like myself, you live in a climate or you have so many hats that you don't need any more hats, or you don't wear a lot of hats. This would be a great way to play around with some new techniques, and test out some new patterns if you're interested in that. So any size, any content, just label the content. The shipping address is going to be listed in the show notes down below, and then include your name and contact information so that they can, at the end of the season, I think they send out a letter sort of talking about how it went this year, how much money they raised, and who they donated to. So that's Feel Good Hats, located in Seattle, but open up for donations from wherever you are. So that was a really cool idea. The second one is a friend that I have mentioned before, Molly of the Optimistic Soap Company. I don't have one of her soaps here in front of me, but I've used her soaps for giveaways. I've used them myself. They're absolutely beautiful, and they smell amazing. And she does a ton of charity work for different LGBTQ plus organizations, as well as other charities that she raises money for. So she's doing one right now. She's trying to raise $5,000. She may have already hit that goal, and she's doing one of her raffles. So she's done this from time to time, where she'll take 20 bars of her soap, and she will allow you to mix and match if you want to kind of create your own collection. And for every $10 donation at her link, which will be down below, you get entered to the raffle for those 20 bars. It's going to go through the 31st of October, so you've got a little less than a week left to go to make your donation. And she's raising money for a school in Florida that supports LGBTQ plus kids. And they've come under, not unexpectedly, a ton of pressure given the horrible administration that is, well, nationally, but also specifically in Florida, that has been really, really awful to the queer community and to queer kids in particular. I'm sure you saw this last week where the memorial to the Pulse shooting victims in Orlando was painted over at the behest of the horrible Ron DeSantis. Luckily, the community came together there in Orlando and repainted it or rechalked it overnight, and I think then have come back and repainted it. But that's just all to say, horrible things going on in Florida. It's a terrible environment down there for humans in general, but for LGBTQ plus humans in particular. So she is raising money for a school that is supportive of their LGBTQ plus kids. They have come under such attacks that she doesn't even feel comfortable telling the name of the school, because she doesn't want to bring any more unwanted attention to them. She just wants to raise some money for them. So go check out Optimistic Soap Co. for this rally, for this raffle in particular, but check out everything that Molly does, because she's an amazing human being, and she is really taking her platform and doing a ton of good in her community as well as the country as a whole with her products, which are also amazing. The next one I want to mention, you have a little bit of time on this one. So the Kings County Fiber Fair. So this is for all my folks in Brooklyn or in New York who go to the Kings County Fiber Fair, which happens in Brooklyn every fall. I think it's usually like the week before Rhinebeck. So it's October 11th this year, and they are collecting hats to distribute to folks experiencing homelessness. So they are going to be taking donations at the old Stone House, which is there in Prospect Park, which is kind of, I think, the center of where the Fiber Festival happens. On the 11th, I think it's from like 10 to 5 in the afternoon. So if you have been making hats all season and looking for a place to donate, then, especially if you are in Brooklyn or New York and can deliver them in person, go check out the Kings County Fiber Fest and their hat drive donation. Valkyrie Fibers, who is one of my favorite dyers, does a lot of self-striping sock yarn. In fact, here's one of her colors right now. She does this is, I think, a Star Wars universe themed one. It's Trap the Artist. I just knit this one up into a pair of shorty socks for my friends last year. So she makes beautiful yarn. She also spins beautiful yarn, and she is donating 100% of her hand spun sales through September 7th to raise money for a local Craftivism event, which is really interesting. They are sending junk mail to their politicians that they think are doing a trashy job. So what they're not just sending pre-made postcards, they are creating their own postcards out of recycled packaging material. So cereal boxes and the cases that like beverages come into that thinner cardboard. At this event that's on the 7th. So if you're in the Lake Tahoe area, go check out Valkyrie Fiber's Instagram feed, and they have the information for getting involved in this event. But they're going to show you how to create your own postcards out of those types of materials, and then they are going to target their local politicians that they think are doing a trashy job in Washington and send them those postcards. So it's kind of this wonderful project that incorporates a bunch of different things. So you're recycling, you're sending a message to your lackluster politicians in DC at the same time that you are helping support the U.S. Postal Service, which is coming under attacks, and most likely, some attempt to privatize it and sell it off to private equity or UPS or someone like that in the next couple of years. So you're kind of supporting the Postal Service and those workers, as well as sending a message to the politicians and doing some recycling. So it's kind of a win-win-win. And in this case, raising money for that effort by getting some fantastic hand-spun yarn. So go check out Valkyrie Fibers. Link down below for her hand-spun yarn, which is in her Etsy shop right now. And last but certainly least, my friends over at Friday Morning Charity, which is a group that every quarter picks a charity to do some sort of drive for. So I worked with them, was it last year? 2 years ago? I don't know. Time is a... difficult to measure at this point, but it sometime in the last couple of years, Friday Morning Charity and I teamed up to do a hat or a drive, accessories drive for Knit the Rainbow, and they each quarter they pick a charity, and then they work on things for kind of a month and a half or so. Right now they are working on a drive for City Mission, which is an organization based in Cleveland that provides services to at-risk families who are either experiencing or at risk of experiencing homelessness. And they are collaborating with SAC, which I've spoken about before, which is an acronym standing for Supporting a Community with Kindness. And what SAC does is provides templates and patterns for you to make little soap sacks. So think about a dishcloth or a washcloth kind of folded that will hold a bar of soap. The founder of SAC, after working in food banks, realized that one thing that was really missing from a lot of these food banks were toiletries and personal hygiene things. And so she came up with this idea of providing a sack which serves as a washcloth, as also a place for the soap to dry, to homeless organizations to give their clients something that they can carry with them to bathe and shower when they have the opportunity, but the soap doesn't get all messy and things like that. So go check out SAC. They have, like I said, they have patterns for both, I think, crochet and knitted soap sacks, and a list of organizations that you can send that with the bar of soap to support their mission. So it's a great organization. I just was reading this morning, I think since they founded, 400 something thousand of these soap sacks have been distributed around the globe, not just in the U.S., which is fantastic. So they have all the guidelines on what, obviously cotton yarn, not wool or acrylic, and the different parameters that they have found to be the best for the. Oh, there's a little hummingbird outside my window. So that is Friday Morning Charity working for the City Mission in Cleveland alongside SAC. So several Craftivism ideas for this episode. I mention it every time. I will mention it again here. If you see something, let me know. Oh, and there was one. I will find it and include it next time. Another organization. I don't think it was a time-sensitive one. I apologize to whoever posted that in my last comments. I forgot to jot that down for today's episode. But if you do see something, let me know. And if my memory doesn't fail me, I will try to include that in an upcoming episode. One of my intentions for this year was to spend less time on social media, Instagram in particular. And so that has somewhat limited the things that I see coming through my feed in terms of craftivism ideas to share with you all. So all that being said, that is it for the craftivism side. We've got some knitting to talk about. As I mentioned, I've had a little bit more time and have been able to finish two of the big projects that I have been working on. Let's do this one first since it's right here. So both of these are gifts for folks, and I needed to get them done by sort of middle of September when I was going to see the recipients. They both still need to be blocked, although, let me know if the second one, not this one, I'm definitely going to block. The second one is so gigantic, space becomes an issue. We'll talk about it when we get there. But the first one is my zigzag scarf. Let me see if I can do a rolling scroll of it here. This is done, it is a pattern by Christy Cam, and it was done in two colors, and I think it's like color 53 and color 33 of Lang Yarns Mille Colori Baby. So a fingering weight yarn. It's not 100% superwash merino, although it doesn't really feel super soft like that, and it has a bit of a thick and thin quality to it. Not extreme, but it's not a plied smooth yarn, so it's more like a singles in that regard, and has some thick and thin things. But because the colors change, so it's a long color repeat, sort of self-striping. If you knit it in the round, it would come out self-striping. But because the color rates change, they're not regular at different rates, you get this effect where the colors cross each other. You switch every other. It's a free pattern, so I don't feel I'm not giving anything away. You switch colors every 2 rows, so you go right side, wrong side, and then you switch colors. And so the colors switch and cross at different places in the repeats, so it kind of gives it this almost random patterning, which I think is fantastic. I highly recommend the pattern. It's very easy. It's a 12 stitch repeat. I think if I were to do it again, the pattern called for 250-gram balls of each color. I was not going to get the length of scarf that it said in the pattern. I did not check my gauge, so that's on me. But I wasn't going to get a long enough scarf. I think what I would do if I did this again is take out probably 2 of the repeats, so kind of make it more this width. Then you probably would have gotten a long enough scarf in the with the two skeins, and the proportions of this, I cut it off. I think it works fine. How I would wear a scarf, which is tied through like that. So it's maybe a little short, but I think because it's so bulky, because it's so wide, if it were any longer, I don't know, it would just, I cut it short, and I think that it lands a little low, but if it's tucked inside a coat, it's going to be fine. And I was ready to be done with it, and I thought that if I'd made it longer so it lasted longer, it was just going to get kind of crazy Doctor Who length. But I'm very, very happy with this. I think I'm hopeful that the recipient is going to like it. It is a surprise. And so Zigzag Scarf, Christy Cam, Lang Mille Colori Baby. I'm going to block it and just pin it out. So the bind off is, so this is the cast on edge, and the bind off edge the peaks are not nearly as pronounced, so I'm just going to pin those out to try to get them to pop up a little bit more, and just maybe the yarn will bloom and soften up a bit as well. The other one that I finished, so that that pattern, I think I said last time, really enjoyed the pattern. Very easy, good TV knitting, although it's a simple repeat and I continue to make mistakes in it. But by the time I got to the second half, I was pretty good at catching them. It did remind me why I don't knit a lot of scarves that are just, a back and forth, fairly simple pattern, because I was ready for it to be over when it was done. It's also fingering weight, so it took a bit of time. This other one I had a ton of fun on. I would have, if it weren't already almost 9.5 feet long, I would have happily added more sections to it. So this is the Marled Magic shawl by Stephen West. This is a scrappy one. So I'm not going to be able to show it completely here probably. I will post a photo here of it spread out on the bed, so you can kind of see it in all of its glory, because I can't get far enough from the camera to make it look. But here is, we'll go side to side. Has this I-cord edge in this orange. Each section is kind of a different marling technique, and there's also some different stitches in there. So you get this mesh stitch, which is where you started out. Then you have a couple of these faded seed stitch sections. There's this brioche section, and then the whole thing, the bottom of it is bordered in these garter bump ridges. That is the only section that is not scraps. So I knew that I wanted the final two sections, which run along the end and kind of meet there at the tassel. I knew I wanted those to be the same, because I was trying to create some sort of unifying sense to this thing, even though it's completely wild in terms of the colors. But I did want to have something that kind of tied it together, and thought that there was enough orange throughout it that maybe that was going to help, and then the orange I-cord bind off. So those are the only things that are not scraps. Otherwise, these are scraps from a bunch of different projects. Really, really fun. You create this braid. It's optional, but I thought it looked cool. Down the kind of center of this, using the tails from the first section, which is this mesh section with the mohair carried, and then you just sort of take those tails and pull them through and create that braid, which ends in a tassel. Mine was not quite long enough, so there's some variation in the length of the tassels down there. Stephen West puts tassels on the other ends, but I thought that for something that's already too much, I thought that was too much. But I'm very, very happy with the way that it turned out. It is gigantic. As I mentioned, it's almost 9.5 feet long. It's about 2 feet wide at the widest point. So I'm kind of debating the utility and ability of blocking this. I mean, I think that it would, relax some of the stitches a bit. And I could, maybe there's one little point where the I-cord, where the three sections come together and the I-cord gets a little wonky, and I could probably, there it is right there, could smooth that out a little bit with some blocking. So drop me a comment down below if you think I've got some time. What I will just have to do is find a long, I can't put it in the hallway, which is probably the most sensible place to do it, because this little dog would get all over it. So I'm gonna have to kind of create some space somewhere to just spread this thing out and pin it a bit. But part of me is just like, as soon as someone puts this on and like it gets all wrapped up, all that shaping is gonna kind of get thrown out the window. And it's not, it's not like a cable project or a colorwork project where I really think that, blooming is going to be a factor. It's primarily superwash yarn. So let me know how important you think that would be. I know there are schools of thought that are 100% always block, and some people who are like, oh, unless it's a sweater that I'm trying to get a fit on, I don't really bother it blocking blocking it. But that's the Marled Magic from Stephen West. Super fun project. I have another one kind of all kitted up. It was my 2-3 MKALs ago, Twists and Turns. I stopped after the second clue. I'm glad I did, because that is probably my least favorite MKAL that design. I just don't like the way that most of them have looked. I just don't like the shape of it, and I think it's odd looking. So I saved that yarn and kind of thrown in some other things to kind of make a less scrappy version of this Marled Magic, and I don't know when that will happen, but I'm really happy because I love this one. I'm not going to do the large version, so the pattern has two sizes, a kind of medium and this gigantic one. And for the smaller size, you just leave off these last two. So this is where the pink and orange are. You just kind of leave off that border, and so it takes, probably a good 2 feet, a foot off of each end, off the wingspan of it, and probably reduces the depth of it by 5 or 6 inches as well. So I'm going to make the smaller version of it, because although I love a schlanket, it's pretty heavy, and it's fingering weight held double. So DK light worsted in terms of like the overall weight, which is a bit heavy for a shawl that I would actually wear around here, except on the coldest part of the winter. But had a great time doing it. Highly recommend. The other thing that I finished, and I just finished these last night, so they have not been blocked, are my slack tied socks. So this is a sock pattern by Lindsay Fowler. I did this in Stroll Tweed from Knit Picks. I think the color is called Prussian Blue, Prussian Tweed, Prussian something. And then this color, which is Jackrabbit Heather for the heel. So it's hard to see, but because of the tweed, there is some patterning. You can see that little pearl valley there on the top of the foot, and it also happens on the back of the leg, which is harder to see because this thing's on the blocker. Where you can see it more clearly is if I turn the sock inside out, because those designs, it's kind of this staggered, there you go, staggered lines. You see them more clearly when they pop off the pearl side of the fabric, and then they are on the front. So very subtle, which I like. I don't have any hand knit fingering weight solid socks. I have one worsted weight, which is more like a slipper. So I'm happy to have these in the mix now. I like the way that the tweed looks. It actually is very similar to the project photo that she has on the pattern page. But it was a fun knit, standard heel flap and gusset. It's a slip stitch heel flap, which I really like the look of. And yeah, I would totally make this again. I think it would be more evident that there's some patterning to it in a just a smooth solid fingering. But yeah, it's a nice sock. These may be a little bit on the long side, but they'll probably with the blocking and maybe just toss them in the dryer for a second, they'll be fine. So slack tied socks by Lindsay Fowler. So that is it. 3 big FOs, and what am I doing? Turning this inside out. So that kind of has freed me up for what's next. I'll talk about. I have a couple of whips that. These socks were one of them that I wasn't sure I was going to move right on, but I kind of was in the kind of had my finishing mojo, and I was like, let's just try to finish some other stuff up. The other sort of one that I think, I will definitely now, I'm going to finish it this week. This is my project from the Pride Pod MAL. So this was started June 1st, and I kind of had to put it on hold because I knew I had a deadline on those on the shawl and the scarf, and wasn't sure when I was going to come back to it. But this week I was like, well, let's just get it done. This is the Brioche Adventure by Jonathan Tallow, and it is being done in an Advent type set, countdown set from Republic of Yarnia that Mary had gifted me last year during Pride, and so I said I was going to save it and work on a project for this year's Pride project. And so it was a series of solids and variegateds, and I tried to kind of put them in some sort of order so that there was some rhyme or reason. They're incredibly bright. This, I don't know that I love the sequencing that I did. I've said this before. I've loved the yarn, loved the pattern. It's a really great beginner brioche pattern because you have these little breaks in between the brioche sections of some garter. So you do get to take a break from brioche if you're just learning, but the brioche itself is very, very straightforward. There's no, fancy increases or decreases. All that happens on the very edges, and they're basic knitting increases and decreases, not the complicated brioche one. So it's kind of done outside of the brioche pattern. Not really, but it's done on the edge, so you don't have to mess around with passing things over and things like that. So I think it's a really nice beginner brioche pattern if you were just wanting to try the technique out. And I'm down to the last 2 colors. So I just finished the navy blue on the right side. So that one will get dropped, and then the variegated that is paired up with that one will pop to the front side, and then there's like a turquoise and then a almost white. It has a little bit of turquoise speckles in it. So I didn't know what I was going to do with this. As I've said, I'm not loving how I sequenced the colors. I don't know how I would have done it differently, but maybe taking a look at a color wheel and seeing what was what worked best with each other. So I've been calling it my I Can See You from Space shawl, but so I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. It was going to be a donation to Knit the Rainbow or some other thing, but then my mother-in-law, who has Alzheimer's, whenever we go and hang out with them, I always bring knitting. So sometimes it's in the car when we're taking them somewhere, or sometimes at their house. But I always bring my knitting because she used to knit. She can't do it anymore. But she's always kind of fascinated with what I'm. First of all, she's fascinated that I knit at all. We always have this. We have the same conversation almost every time. That she's always amazed that I do it and that a man is doing it. But she's always interested in the project, and she loves bright colors, and so she really got drawn to this shawl. So every time I've come by with it, she's like, "Who's that for? Is it for me?" And I was like, "You know what? Yes. This can be for you." So I said, when I finish this, I will bring it to you. And if you are still interested in having it, it will be yours. So this is going to be for my mother-in-law. And, I don't know that she will ever wear it, but I hope that she enjoys just kind of having it around and holding onto it and squishing it, because it's brioche and it's very squishy, and looking at the pretty colors. And I hope that brings her some joy. So yeah, I'm going to finish this in the next couple of days. I've been able to get through about one of these sections each day. The U.S. Open is just started, and so we're spending a lot of time watching tennis on the television. And so this is a great project because, as I said, it's a very straightforward brioche project, so I can kind of do it without a lot of thinking. And I'm hoping to have this wrapped up in the ends woven in the next couple of days, and I can deliver it to my mother-in-law. So that'll be nice. So then, with that done, I'm really down to just 2 what I consider kind of longer-term projects, because I'm not focused on finishing them at any particular time. And one of the things I have learned this year is that for next year's intentions, one of them is going to be, with one exception, to try not to knit on any deadlines. I'm going to, and it was funny, I was just listening to the Unraveling podcast with Greg and Pam, and they had a thing about gift knitting and knit coming up on the holidays, and do you do it? And someone was saying, like, I no longer knit for any particular holiday. I do knit gifts, but they get the gifts whenever they happen. And that's kind of, I think, my approach going to be going forward, or at least try, with one exception for next year, which we'll talk about. But I really just don't like knitting on a hard deadline. It takes a little bit of the joy out of it, I think, for me, even though I love knitting for other people. So I'm going to continue to knit for other people, but I'm going to just do it when those projects are done. Then they'll be gifted. So I have two kind of longer term projects. These are not gifts, but I'm just kind of like, when these get done, they're going to get done. The first is a pair of socks. I started this a while ago. Actually, I started this before our vacation, at the beginning of the summer, thinking I was going to take it with me on vacation, and then realizing that a cabled sock was probably not the call for vacation today. So these are the Harriet socks by Summer Lee. I've only gotten this far. There we go. This is in yarn. It's a Woolberry Fiber Co. That was gifted to me by Rachel from Pearls and Polish as part of her annual sock swap. This is a color that has something to do with Pride and Prejudice. It's a quote, and I've forgotten something. My something always somethings. Oh, my something always rises. Carol, help me out. Courage. My courage always rises. So I'm calling these my Jane Austen Harriet socks. And I'm going to pick these back up now and do a little work on them from time to time, but no rush. I'm going to do other socks in between now and then, and those will just kind of get done when they get done. And the other thing that I don't have to show because there's been zero progress on it, but once the Brioche Adventure is done, that's going to become my US Open tennis knitting, and that is the Habitation Throw from Helen Stewart. I'm using a advent from like 2021, 2022 from Goosey Fibers. It was a Kill a Mockingbird advent, and I'm hoping that, I'm not going to say by the end of the year, but sometime before my birthday next summer, that thing gets done. I think I'm about halfway through. I was looking at the other day. I think I'm about halfway through. It's a pretty easy project, and so, who knows? Maybe I'll make more progress than I'm thinking, but I'm not pushing myself to rush to finish any of those, although I would like to take one of the other advents that I have and do something with those. So, but that kind of brings me to what's going to be next. I have, one more project that I have that is so silly that I haven't finished this. This was my walking project when I was trying to do walking and knitting. And I just haven't been walking. But this is a Colby hat by Elizabeth Doherty. I'm basically down to the crown decreases. I just need to sit down and crank this out and then get this into the charity pile. It's a mix of Felici, worsted from Knit Picks. I don't even know what the orange yarn is, but it feels like a superwash merino in the orange. It was a scrap from another project, maybe from I think that was a Cascade 220 from a blanket project I made several years ago for a graduate. So before we get into what could possibly be next and talk about kind of where I am in the queue that I planned at the beginning of the year, let's deal with the giveaways. So I have this skein of yarn, which was this episode's giveaway. Sorry, it got untangled. This is a Fuzzy Whatnots Superwash Peruvian Highland wool in the Wintry Mix colorway. And I had asked folks to make a comment in the comment section of last episode with the word mix in it. And I drew those or grabbed those comments right before I got, oh my gosh, we'll do that later, filming. And Angela, who is Balls of Twine here on YouTube and also on Instagram, and one of the Tuesday knitters in our Zoom, which is linked in the show notes. If you would ever like to join us, we would love to meet you and have you join. But Angela, this is headed your way. I hope you find something beautiful to make with it. And we're just going to keep going with the giveaways. I had a big old tub of yarn that had either been donated or that I had pulled out of Stash to be given away as prizes for different things. And there is no time like the present. I'm trying to get that down to a little more manageable number of things as I also try to continually destash my stash. So, sorry for the reach. This time we are going to be giving away this fantastic skein of Trilogy yarn. Speaking of the Zoom night, Nancy, formerly of Trilogy Yarn, now of the Knitting in the Northwest podcast. This is on the plush base, which I think the new dyer of Trilogy Yarn is getting rid of. So I don't think this base is going to be available for much longer. This was a prototype colorway of Drag Queen Pit Stop, which was one of the colors from my Stitch Out Loud collection that I did a couple years ago, excuse me, I've got the hiccups, I always do, raising money for AIDS Life Cycle. And Nancy got the Drag Queen Pit Stop colorway and had a couple of different prototypes that she had dyed up, and then she finally got the one that she loved and became the color. But when she was sending me the yarn that after the orders came in, she said, I have these two, I think there were two of them. She said, I think I have these two. There were prototypes, they weren't exactly what I was looking for, but you can use them to give away. So here is this one. It's on the MCN base, so 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon. Just so much fun. I'm almost positive this also glows. Oh, actually, can we do it? I have one right here. I think the battery's still good. I think this also is... No, the battery's dead. I had one of the little black light things from Seismic Yarn, but it doesn't work. But I'm pretty sure this glows under ultraviolet light. So if you are interested in adding this to your collection, let's say use the word fall, because it's kind of autumnal. I'm going to be talking about fall knitting here. So use the word fall in your comment down below, and I will enter you into the drawing for that for next time. So let's talk about fall knitting. I had taken a look at the page here on my notes. Taking a look at the queue that I put together for this year, and I've got to say I have done pretty well. At least working on or attempting most of the stuff, and there's still some to go, and we'll get into those. But a couple of them didn't work out. The crocheted hats that I was trying to do for this summer, one I needed to completely rip out. The other one, the size was too big, and so it just became a donation. But I didn't do either of those yet, to try to tweak them to make them, so maybe that's a next year summer project. The only thing that was kind of for a summer thing that got did get some work on it, but it totally did not go back to it, was the Moroccan tiles crochet shirt. Here's a picture of it. If you'll recall, the pattern was a little sparse in terms of detailing, and the yarn that was mentioned in the thing did not give me anything close to a gauge that matched the pattern. Subsequently, I found some crochet thread that I think is more likely what this thing was originally made of, and I think that the designer has also kind of put out an update to the pattern, so I'm going to check that out. I'd still love to make it. It's going to be a ton of work, but I've got the yarn, and we'll maybe give it another go sometime this winter with some swatching and see where that leads us. Otherwise, I may just throw in the towel on it and destash that yarn or figure out something else to do with it. So those are the only ones that the two hats and that are the only two that were like a kind of, I would say, fails from the queue, with some things that are still left to go. But the things that I still would like to work on a little bigger project, and I think after working on these two big projects, I need a bit of a palette cleanser. I just want, or not really a palette cleanser, more I need something right now that's sort of instant gratification. And so I started, we were talking about this on the Tuesday Zoom last week. And I said, oh, I was thinking about, well, one idea I had is I have these sock tubes and I kind of have them for break glass in emergency situations where I'm like, I just want to make a pair of socks. So I think that's one of the things I'm going to do here in the next few weeks. But we started talking about other projects, and I can't remember how it came up. I think because I said, oh, I'm thinking about trying to do a single skein DK project. I had done this Janina Kalilo pattern called Orbit. I keep doing that. Here's a picture of it. I started this and finished it on a vacation a couple of years ago, and it was a great sort of quick, fun project that I actually wear quite a bit because it's a single skein DK. It's small. It's kind of lightweight. And I said, oh, maybe, I could do a Sophie scarf. And someone said, oh, have you seen this? It just came out. Stephen West has this new pattern. It's called the Dancing Droplet Skinny Scarf or Small Scarf. And I brought it up, and Stephen West had done an ebook of small scarves, which is where the bubble bandana that I did earlier this year came from. Now his second edition or second volume of skinny scarf books, and this one, here's a picture of it, is in that ebook. And he does it with I think it's with a Twisted Ambition skein as the sample photo, but it's a variegated skein of yarn. And I was like, oh, I have all of this like variegated single skeins of DK from various clubs that I joined, and they're just kind of sitting there, and I'm always like, what am I going to do with those? And you can use them in a multi-skein project as sort of a, part of a fade or something like that. But I thought that's a great idea. So I popped open the tub and found this skein, which is Magpie Fibers when I was part of the Magpie Fiber Society, which I highly recommend because it's all on their swanky bases, DK or fingering, and almost always the colors were great. I really enjoyed being a part of that, but I kind of had to stop it to use up some of what I've got. So this is a swanky DK. This is Fiber Society number 21. This is this is the variegated, because they do a variegated and a speckled each quarter. So 80, 10, 10 superwash merino cashmere nylon, 250 yards for 115 grams. And yeah, I think I'm going to wind this up here in the next, I'm going to get the brioche thing done, and then I'm going to wind this up, and I'm just going to do that as just a fun, quick project. I have another, I have a couple, I've got some time before I travel again, but beginning and end of September, and then the first bit of October, there's some travel, and so we'll see. Maybe I'll finish it before then and wear it on the trip, or maybe I'll just get it started and make that my travel knitting project. So that's the Dancing Droplets from Stephen West. So the other thing I'm going to do as sort of my instant gratification kind of transition into fall knitting, just to feel like I've gotten something done for myself, is to take one of the sock tubes, and I think this is the one I've decided on, and I can't remember who. So these I got cranked up by Totally Tubular sock tubes on Etsy, sock tube cranking service. So you can tell her, I think she can do 64 or 72 stitches and send it off her yarn, and she'll crank it up. You can tell her if you want some left for heels, toes, and cuffs, or if you want her to use the whole tube. I can't remember. This is a commercial yarn. This is not indie dyed, and so I want to say it's like a Cascade or something like that. I probably have the tag here somewhere, but I'm going to do that. And I think one of the goals I have for this set is I've never done I don't know why I have not done the calculations on how much weight of yarn it takes for a cuff. for a toe, for an afterthought heel. And I've got a lot of scraps. I'm trying to work through them, doing these scrappy projects, but I still have a lot of scraps. And I'm just never sure if it's like, is this going to be enough for a heel and a toe and a cuff, or a heel or what? So I've got a 20-gram mini from Treehouse Knits. This is from her Cocoa collection. This is Marigold colorway. I'm going to do all three in that and measure along the way to just finally get a sense on, what my standard cuff and an afterthought heel and a toe is. And then I'm going to try to remember, as I make other socks and use different heels, how much each of those takes. So then I can start working through these scraps to add those to the sock tubes to make the heels and toes and cuffs. So those are my two very near-term, instant gratification projects to transition me into fall and to see how much more of the queue from early in the year I can do. So the big one for me that I really, really would like to get done by the end of the year, but I'm not going to hold myself to that, is a basic cardigan. So I'm going to take the Amy Herzog's Ultimate Sweater Book, where she has cardigans, pullovers in all different sort of constructions, so set-in sleeves, drop sleeves, circular yokes, and has tables based on your stitches per inch and what weight of yarn you're using, and kind of spits out basic patterns, although there are some more complicated patterns in the book as well. But I'm just going to do a basic set-in sleeve cardigan for myself. I have picked out the yarn. I'm going to be doing this in Treehouse Knits. It's a big day for Treehouse Knits here at the Gary Knits house. There's a ton of Treehouse Knits in the Gary Knits house, but this is the Dream a Little Dream colorway from the Stranger Things collection from a few years ago. It is on her Sierra Sport base, which is 100% superwash merino. It's this very, very dark, inky blue. And yeah, so I'm going to, don't know when I'm going to start this. I'm going to swatch for it right now and just figure out my gauge, and then get the pattern sort of all set, and then, start working on it at some point. But this will be a multi-month project. It may carry into the new year. It may, maybe I'll get so excited to work on it that I'll get it done. I understand that the challenges, having done my first ever garment in charcoal gray, I understand the challenges of a big project in relatively small but very dark yarn. The good news is this has no patterning to it. That first garment was a all over cable pattern, so this will be a little less onerous, I think. Thanks. So that is a definite. I had two knit shawls that I wanted to try to get done this year. I would like to try to start one of those before in the next month or so. Again, no timeline on finishing them. I haven't decided which one it's going to be. Complicating that whole the arithmetic there is the Stephen Westknits MKAL, which I am going to do this year, provided I have the yarn and stash to do it. So if it ends up being, I could still even probably do it. If it's one like last year where I think it was like 2 skeins of 2 colors, that might be a bit of a challenge, because I don't know that I have a lot of double skeins in fingering weight, and I assume it will be a fingering weight shawl because it seems to always be. I just got the newsletter today saying I think September 7th is the launch date, so we should have some clarification on the number of skeins and the number of colors, and maybe some guidance on types of colors. It's called MKAL, and it's kind of a music theme. There was a mention of neon in there. I don't know that I'm going to do neon, even if that's kind of the direction he's pointing folks in, having learned a little bit of a lesson from my brioche adventure. But that kind of complicates the other shawl. So I'm unlikely to be able to finish 2 shawls and a sport weight cardigan between now and the end of the year. But I would like to start one of these two. So the first one that I really, really wanted to do is oh my God, Sunwalker by Melanie Berg. Here's a photo. I have already caked up the yarn for that. I have the needles sitting behind me. I'm not going to grab them because it's in a crinkly package and I forgot to bring it out. But it is also in a Treehouse Knits colorway called Most Metal Ever. Also from the Stranger Things collection. Also navy blue. And it is a tweed. So it is very similar, in fact. The blue is darker, but it's very similar to this Stroll tweed. The vibe is exactly the same, but it's more of a navy, a little bit less of kind of a denim blue. So the only thing that's giving me pause on that one is because the shawl I really wanted, I really would like to have a navy blue solid shawl, is that I'm going to have one navy blue project already. It's a 3 skein fingering weight shawl. So it's going to go slow and it's going to be a big project. And I've just kind of finished working with a tweed yarn. So that's what's giving me pause, even though in terms of wearability, that is a very high priority to me. The other one that I have picked out to start on the knitting side, because there is another shawl in the mix, is The Night Shift by Andrea Mowry. And this is, I believe, the original colorways that were used in, I don't know how old this pattern is, but it's quite old. But Modern Daily Knitting sometime last year had a sale on the original bundle, I think, of the colorways that were in the sample, which I think looks great. And so I also have another Night Shift kitted up. It's also in Treehouse Knits, but I think I'm going to do this one first. So the pluses to this project are it's worsted weight, so it is going to move a lot faster. These are I don't even know if these are 100 gram. Maybe they are 100 grams. 150 yards, so that's probably slightly under 100 grams. So it's worsted weight, so it's going to work up pretty quickly. It's going to be a fun one to work on because of the color changing. I've never really knit much with Spin Cycle, so I think that would be a really fun project. The sort of downside to this one is because it's worsted weight, it's probably not going to get a ton of wear as a shawl, just because it's going to be a little bit heavy for around here. But I do have enough trips to cold climates that I can always pack it up. So those are the two that are in the mix. I would say right this minute I'm kind of leaning towards this one, just for the, again, instant gratification and the fact that I feel like there's a lot of navy tweed going on, having gone on in my life recently, so that maybe that would just be a bit of more of a palate cleanser. So those are the two knitting things that are one of those is going to get cast on. I said there's another shawl. One of my intentions from last year was to do one Tunisian crochet project this year. I have not, but I had one that was, I'd already pulled out the yarn for it, and that is the Loveland Shawl by Tony Lipsy. It's a 4 skein DK weight project, 2 colors, 4 skeins, so 2 of each. And these are the colors that they picked out. One is Magpie Fiber, Swanky DK, Adela is the greatest, kind of an olive with some gold speckles, brown speckles in there. And I'm pairing that up with, again, Treehouse Knits. This is, again, from her Cocoa collection, and this is Land of the Living. So these are the two that I was going to pull together to do that Tunisian crochet project. This I will start. This may be, move into the spring, depending on how much fun I'm having it. It's been a while since I think I've only done one real Tunisian crochet project. It's a shawl that Steph made, that pattern, Lacy. I think it's called Lacy Shawl. And I remember having fun with it. And so I definitely would like to do that. So this one I'm going to definitely get going on. It's just how fast I work on it depends on how much fun I'm having with the project. So that seems like a lot of things to be starting. But again, I'm kind of taking a little bit of a, I didn't think this would ever happen, but I'm kind of taking a little bit of clue from Nancy from Knitting in the Northwest, who I've spoken about before, always has a ton of whips, and she has this whip wall where she rolls a dice and picks which one she's going to work on next. And she does these big cast on parties where she'll cast on like 12, 13 things in one day, and then that becomes her whip wall, and then she just kind of works on that. And I'm not how I've ever really worked. I always think that like sort of 5-ish is sort of my magic number, but without a deadline, I feel like I could probably try that. So she had talked about, she usually does these cast on parties with some other, organized by some other knitter, but she said she's thinking about doing one sometime during the holidays. And I don't know if it was between Thanksgiving and Christmas, or between Christmas and New Year's. So I may hold off on a couple of these and just do that. I'm not going to cast on like 13 things, but maybe cast on like 4 or 5 things one day, and then just have that, have those, since that'll be kind of later heading into the spring. So maybe I'll save one of those. Maybe the other shawl, whichever one doesn't get cast on now, will push into the cast on party. So the only other thing that's kind of a bigger, although I think I'm going to break this up and only do one of them, I have forever wanted to do a doodle project. I have the book, I have several decks of cards, and I just have never gotten around to doing it. And I've had for several years now already picked out from the original, I think it was Jamie's Pacific, if you don't know what I'm talking about, the doodles from Pacific Knit Co. Are a set of small colorwork motifs that she puts on little playing cards, and you can mix and match and make different projects. But I think her original one was the holiday doodle cowl and hat. And I've had this yarn from Madeline Tosh, DK, all ready to go to make a holiday doodle hat and or cowl. And so I'm thinking maybe I will just, it's been a while since I've done color work. It's something I wanted to do this year. And so I'm thinking I'll just cast on one. Probably won't get done before the holidays, but it'll get done before some holiday. And I will just have them ready for whenever the holiday pops around that I have them finished, then that's when they'll get used. But I would like to try that. And I don't know, I'm leaning to the cowl. I don't know why, but I'm leaning towards the cowl. And so I may, may start those up. And again, that could be a good, if Nancy's doing her thing between Thanksgiving and Christmas, that may be a good thing to do. And the rest of what I'm going to be working on mainly is socks. So I have one, I said I only had one project that had this doesn't have a deadline, but it is a gift. A friend that I made some socks for earlier this year, her partner wanted some socks, got jealous of the handmade socks, and so she wanted rainbows, and so I got some of Laura from Always Be Kind's Progressive Pride socks. Here's how those knit up. And so I'm going to make her just a plain vanilla pair of socks for those. I need to get her foot measurements, and then I can get started on those. But again, no promises on when those were going to get done, but they will get done. And then for myself, one of these two, just a plain vanilla sock, because I have lots of self-striping. Now I have one solid. I'd like to do a pair of variegated socks. So one of these two Twisted Ambition skeins that I picked up during LA Yarn Crawl, kind of leaning toward the multicolored one, just because I remember seeing how pretty that was all knit up. And just do a pair of, I think I'm going to try to do 2 at a time toe up, and with a afterthought heel, just to see. I know Michael over at Piece for Piece Crafting, that's his standard go-to. And we were chatting at Flock, and I was like, you make the rest of us look bad as how fast you knit up your socks. And one of the other goals this year was to sort of get faster at sock knitting. I think I have by and large, but I would also like to have kind of a go-to recipe where I can just, if it's just a plain vanilla sock, that I can, I know how many cast on, I know, how long the foot is, and just can kind of do that. Because one of the things I found is that knitting socks for other people, I then forget what my sock thing is, and so I have to go back and look it up and and so I just kind of want to, and I think the afterthought heel makes that a little bit easier because you're not stopping and starting to do the heel, which is not hard, but it is fiddly, and it kind of takes you out of the rhythm of just going round and round and round. And this way, I could just be a little circular sock machine and try that out. So one of those we'll get started as well. And then the other thing that really I have to talk to my friends who went to flock with me, and when we're going to start our butterfly field. That's the pattern that we all bought minis for at flock, and we haven't decided when we're going to kick that off. I said it has to wait until I'm finished with these other projects. Now that that's done, maybe tonight, it's Tuesday, I'm filming this, we'll talk about when we want to get that started. But that's going to be another long-term project, because I'll start it and just kind of have it kind of like the Brioche Adventure, just kind of like hanging around and pick it up every now and then. So a lot of these things will probably push into the spring. The only other thing, and I talked about the one project that will have a deadline. I have one of my graduating seniors blanket, so he graduates next spring. I'm going to make the Theo blanket from Tony Lipsy. Here it is. I'm going to modify it a bit to make it a rectangle instead of a square. So I've got to do a little bit of playing around with that and do the swatching. And then that will get done this fall. I will not start on that project until the spring. I think it'll go pretty quickly because it is crochet. But I'm going to have to special order the yarn. I'm going to be doing it in tweeds from, I believe it's... Who does Encore? Is that Plymouth Yarn Encores? There's an Encore tweed. My local yarn store is a distributor, is a retailer for them, and so she can do a special order. And so I'm going to do that through her. So I just need to do the swatch, kind of figure out how much of each color I'm going to need, and see. Marianne, who is a viewer, had given me some great tips on how to modify that to turn it into a rectangle instead of a square. So I just need to sit down, kind of play around with that, and see how that's going to work. So that's the only deadline project that I'm hopefully going to have for the foreseeable future, because I can't think of any other graduating seniors that we have for a while. So that means no blankets on the horizon except for this one. So that's kind of it. I feel like I did pretty well with my queue for 2025, with the caveat that a couple of these things are going to probably get started in 2025, but probably pushed into 2026, if I'm being honest with myself. I do need to figure out, like I said, I have some travel coming up, and maybe certain things I just don't think make great travel projects, like a colorwork project. So maybe that's the socks, that's where those come in, as those become travel projects. Maybe the Tunisian shawl, because it's only 2 colors, so there's only 2 balls of yarn I have to transport. On that note, I do know that the MKAL is going to start like right at the beginning of one of my trips, and it's a longer trip, and so I have to ask myself, do I want to carry all that yarn, not knowing what the clue is, because the clue is not going to be put out until after I'm gone from the house? Do I want to take all that yarn with me in a bag to work on the trip, or do I put myself 2 weeks behind everybody when I get back to start that up? So I have a feeling I'm going to take it with me, if I'm being honest. In that case, I kind of almost hope it's one of these like 2 color shawls, although I would prefer really to have one of the multicolored, like 4 or 5 colored shawls. So we shall see. Maybe Stephen West, if you could tell us ahead of time, clue 1, how many colors you're gonna need in clue 1, that would be super helpful from my perspective. I know you're listening to this and watching it, so to be determined down the road. So, like I said, I feel pretty good about that. I know I've gone a little bit longer than normal, but I did just want to go through these intentions that I had made and kind of score myself. So the first one was no new blankets. That that's great. I haven't started any new blankets. The habitation throw was started many moons ago and continues to be working on. And I won't start the new blanket for the Theo blanket until the beginning of the year, although I'll swatch for it this year. So that was good because I had a big year for blankets this year. There was a list of projects that I was going to finish or frog, and that happened. I frogged several. I finished several. The only one that has not been finished, but I continue to make progress little by little on it, is the habitation throw. So I will give myself a check mark on that one. Social media, more Ravelry, less Zuckerberg. I will give myself half credit on that. I did really well for the first half of the year, weaning myself completely off of Facebook, except for my local Buy Nothing group, which is the only way that I have to give things away on that. So I have kept my account open, but I deleted 12 years worth of content on Facebook, and so there's nothing there anymore except an account. And then I was hoping to do something similar on Instagram, but for a number of reasons wasn't able to do that. Still have that as a goal. Still have done pretty good about trying to spend less time on there, but more recently I've failed a little bit on that account. So half credit for there. Always Be Hooking was one of mine. I always wanted to have a crochet project on the hooks, and about halfway through the year that fell apart because I stopped working on those 2 hats and did not have anything to take its place. So I've had 3 or 4 months of a crochetless dry spell. That will get rectified here in the near term with the Tunisian project. And I do think that I didn't talk about charity projects, but I think that I will. My next hat, once I finish the Colby hat, I'm going to try to do a crochet hat, and maybe that's the way that I can always have something crochet oriented, because those are small and portable and faster to do than knit hats for charity. One Tunisian project, we talked about that, hasn't been done, hoping to rectify that. The yarn purge, I am overstashed, as many of us are, and I'm trying to make a decided effort to do a lot of projects so I can get some out, and then through Destash and other things, giveaways, whatever, get rid of it. So I've done really well. I am down 249 skeins of yarn this year. Most of that came from a single Destash at the beginning of the year that I was raising money for the last AIDS life cycle. But I've done some destashes locally with several of my knitting groups who've done destashes. I've gotten rid of some yarn that way, as well as giveaways. So I'm going to continue, and hopefully, I think I can get rid of another 20 skeins this year between projects and some giveaways and some destash. So I think if 270 skeins of yarn gotten rid of in a year is pretty good. If I continue doing that at that rate for the next couple years, I'll be down to a manageable amount. Read more books. I'm going to give myself an F on that. I have listened to a couple, but not been nearly as good about reading and listening as I wanted to be. Try planning, inspired by Rachel from Pearls and Polish, who's a big, physical planner. I bought a planner insert for a little notebook and got it all started, and then, except for tracking my yarn stash, just realized that is not going to be something that I'm going to be able to do. It's too much of a time commitment, and I know it's just something you have to sit down and do, and it's just I can't. I don't think I could just make that part of the schedule. So that is a check that I tried it, and an X that it is not for me. For the year, I wanted to do 2 sweaters, 3 socks, and 10 hats. I got the socks done. I'm going to count my Mohit t-shirt as a sweater, even though it's not really. And then, I'll get partially through my cardigan. So, and I've probably done 5 hats. So we're going to give ourselves a C on that one. And in terms of techniques that I wanted to focus on this year, faster socks, I'll give myself half credit. I think I've gotten faster, but it's not where I want to be. Color work, I've done no color work. And so if I start the doodle cowl, I guess that's a partial credit on that. Fish Lips Kiss Heel, yes, done that. I also did this shadow wrap heel, both of which I enjoyed and are in the repertoire. So A on that, and then A plus on Scrappy. So I did Scrappy socks. I did scrappy marled magic shawl. So I've had fun playing with scraps. I'm going to continue that, but in terms of techniques, I'm solid B, I would say, on that. So between the cue and the intentions, I think it's been so far, and we've still got another quarter to go, a pretty okay year, even though I think in the last couple of months it felt like no, because I had these two projects that were just taking a long time. But on reflection, I think it's been okay, and we've still got some fun things to work on for the last quarter of the year. I appreciate you sticking around this long. Again, this is the second kind of longer one of these that I've done. I think it'll probably be a little shorter next time, because I'm not expecting to go through my queue and have as many FOs to talk about. So thanks again for taking some time out of your busy schedules to spend it with me. Drop a comment down below with fall in it if you want to get entered into the giveaway for this skein of Drag Queen Pit Stop from Trilogy Yarn. And take care of yourselves, take care of others, make some good trouble out there, and happy knitting. Take care. Bye. I'll see you soon.